Hello, and welcome to the Kink Perspective. My name's Chris. I'm a psychotherapist and consultant. On today's show, I'm going to be talking about something that was kind of brought to my attention. I received a couple of emails now about, actually I've received a lot of emails about this, and it kind of started out last week with somebody reaching out to me about the emotional effects on bulls within the lifestyle. If you're not overly familiar with what a bull is, I'll kind of get to that here in a moment. But these were some really thought-provoking insights into this concept of this life and cuckold relationships. So I wanted to really write about it, and I've been sitting and I put up some questions on social media for people to, if you know anybody, can somebody reach out to me? And it was kind of like a floodgate opened up. So before I kind of get into the email itself and the insights at this journey of understanding and exploration and emotions, let's really understand the concept of what a bull is. So in the context of a cuckold relationship which is where more often than not one partner is having sex with somebody else, and sometimes even in front of their partner, and this can be either heterosexual or a homosexual relationship or whatever the case may be. But in the concept of these cuckold relationships, a bull plays a specific role as a third party introduced to fulfill these sexual desires of one person, while the other partner experiences a mix of humiliation and arousal. The bull is often seen as more as an attractive entity, sexually virile, strong, dominant prowess, typically with exceptional sexual talents. These people become the catalyst for the couple's exploration. Where the hot wife engages in sexual encounters with the bull, the male partner, known as the cuck, often observes maybe photographs or films and might be allowed in some sort of form of participation in non-touching role. So this brings in the fetish of cuckolding, and it's, like I said, it's not limited to just heterosexual couples, but it can really be anybody in any spectrum. Now, while primarily this goes more for the hot wife cuckold dynamic, and this becomes the most common descriptions, there are variations to this. And participants in this lifestyle can customize their relationship to suit their desires. Within this context, though, the bull serves as an important tool to facilitate dominance and submission, sexual fulfillment, sexual fantasy fulfillment, with the focus on enhancing their couple's sexual experiences. However, while this can be quite fulfilling, this is where this email comes in, that there is an emotional toll that's placed on the person in the role of the bull. And in this email I received, which was entitled, "No One Feels Sorry for the Bulls," it brings and highlights a lot of attention to the emotional experiences that bulls go through, particularly men or those who primarily engage as bulls within the lifestyle itself. Now, after a session with a hot wife or a couple, bulls may experience a range of emotions. They may be completely disconnected. They might be there for the fulfillment, having sex, and they're done. Right? Or there can be jealousy, the development of feelings. I mean, you spend enough time with somebody, even people who do the whole friends with benefits. If you're doing something long enough with somebody you're comfortable enough, over time, we tend to start attachment. So bulls here in this particular sense might contemplate finding or seeking a fulfilling relationship with someone who embodies the physical attractiveness and great personality, as sometimes referred to specifically through this email, wifey type material or wife material. Now, it's important for us to recognize that these emotional experiences can vary greatly among bulls, depending on the individual factors and the specific dynamics of their engagement. So now I kind of want to, dive into that and get into some of these common emotional effects that bulls may encounter and discuss the strategies for navigating these complexities. And when I kind of opened up about this and I reached out, I didn't I don't think I had less than about 35 or 36 emails from different people all over the planet, which is really amazing thing about social media and people within our, fetish community, that I can start to get a really broad picture. Now, in the psychological sense, a study with a control group of 36 is not a lot. I don't know how big the bull community is. Never participated in it, but the reality is that this is a small, a decent enough cross section where if they're all kind of saying the same thing, that there is some sort of effect that's starting to go along. There is a psychological toll. There is an emotional toll, because they look at a lot of the responses I was getting was that they're looking at themselves as disposable, that they're just merely a tool or a utility and an extension of the couple itself. They sometimes even don't feel like a person. They've been reduced, where they're, in essence, emasculating the cock. The after effect is when they feel this emasculation of who they are. Now, this doesn't go for all. I've, a couple of emails where, I really love my lifestyle and I enjoy doing what I do, and I meet a lot of great people and I travel to a lot of great places. And that's great. There was a couple in here that I got for some that were inexperienced. So I want to kind of talk about that. From an experienced bull standpoint, it's important to be aware of certain aspects before entering the session. And I kind of want to talk about this anecdote here from one person. We're going to call this person Alex. And Alex had illustrated some of the challenges he was facing as an inexperienced bull. Now, he in recent times let me know that he discovered the cuckold lifestyle. Young guy in his 20s, works in the corporate world, but this is kind of his nighttime thing. He's always been intrigued by the concept and eager to explore being a bull. So Alex went to a party, and he connected with a couple who had been in the lifestyle for a few years. After some talking and some, getting to know each other and meeting and develop some comfortability, they arranged a session. And Alex eagerly anticipated this encounter. However, after the session unfolded, Alex began to feel a mix of emotions he wasn't fully prepared for. And despite this initial excitement, he realized that being a bull entails a lot more than just engaging, popping over, having sex, cleaning up, whatever, getting dressed and leaving. He witnessed this connection between the couple, that this intimacy on this level that they share and this deep bond that they built, that he was excluded from and didn't have. And this left Alex feeling a little lost. This left Alex feeling empty and questioning and trying to reflect on what exactly he was getting into, because this being one of his limited experiences wasn't something he was prepared for. Now, I've never been a bull. I've been in the dominant role or facet of the lifestyle for over 20 years. So this concept to me is different. But when he's describing this emptiness and kind of this transactional in nature, you start to wonder whether or not, is it always cracked up to what it's meant to be? And it's the same thing when I have conversations with men when they're going to have a three-way with two women. And I often explain, you're not the main course. You're kind of the appetizer. The women are there for themselves or to explore with each other. You're kind of then their utility. And that's definitely been my experience with that. But Alex, as he conveyed to me, started opening up and saying that, there was feelings of emptiness. There was some depression that started coming in. He was wrestling with the effects of, I was needed in the moment. Now I'm being discarded. Now what do I do? Now how do I feel about myself, what I'm doing, everything that's involved with all of this? How do I reconcile these feelings? How do I do these things? And that's not an easy question to answer, right? Because we have to understand that, first off, bulls aren't, if we think of the context of the word bull, right? So it's an animal that for the most part prized farmers had. If they had a bull that was a stud, they would stud him out to other farmers who had cows, and they would help procreate so they could have more cows and, grow their livestock, and everybody wins. But if we're looking at it in that context and kind of drawing this parallel, the reality is that you're engaging with someone, you're using them for something. You may or may not develop some sort of emotional relationship with them, but they're disposable, because at the end of the day, you're not married to them, you're not connected to them. The couple is living out that fantasy through this person, and then when they're done, that's over. The couple goes about their day, and now the bull is kind of sitting here. This man is sitting here wrestling with these facts, wrestling with these emotions, trying to contemplate what's going on. And it's interesting when I hear or read comments about, I've been with this couple for, 3 or 4 years. They eventually got married, and then all of a sudden, I'm being invited to maybe the wedding reception or something to that effect. And people are asking how they are known in this world. And what do you come up with an answer for that? Oh, well, we're just some longtime friends. And that's about it, because you can't really go much deeper than that. So you're discarded, and you're becoming second or third, you're becoming secondary to them in essence. And there's no real emotional attachment there for them. And so the bull is kind of left wrestling with inside of this isolation, because the realization starts coming around of, I'm just here to fulfill the fantasy. And that leaves people empty. We talk about the emotional effects on women, and when women are used, or women who are sex workers, and it's all transactional. And that's great because they know what it is going into it. But often when I'm counseling or I'm talking with people, I always tell people, if you're constantly engaging in this type of behavior, physical activity, not behavior, but if you're in constantly engaging with somebody, you have somebody on the side that, you're single, but this eventually over time, we do establish a connection. And it may not be us, it might be the person that we're engaging with, but over time, someone's going to develop feelings. That usually complicates these types of situations. And for the bull, even if you know that for you it's just to go in there, have sex, maybe do some verbal humiliation or degradation on the cuck, and then leave, you may be okay with that. But then there is the other side of this coin where the hot wives themselves may develop feelings, and this creates another paradigm shift inside of all of this gigantic relationship that's going on. And it's been interesting as I started reading some of these emails. A couple of them had the same thing where they'd had to go to the police, go to court to stop stalking, where the wives started developing, or the girlfriends started developing, intense attraction, which devolved into obsessive and stalking type behavior over the bulls. And where the bull was like, nope, this is just, for the most part, it's a transactional type relationship. The women didn't see it that way. They had now developed massive feelings and let that uncontrolled obsession take over. Or unchecked obsession, actually, which would be a better phrase for it. And this, again, has an adverse effect on somebody who's a bull. Because then the next couple you meet, this becomes the concern. It's like when we get burned in a relationship. If we're in a relationship where, if our last 3 relationships, somebody constantly cheated on us in each relationship, forget all the other issues that may be going on in the moment, we are going to believe that the next person we get involved with will do the same thing. And this particular person, Alex, he had let me know that 2 of the relationships he was involved in over time, in his experience, where somebody started developing feelings, and she'd show up at his home or his apartment by herself and wanted to engage. And he's like, this isn't, and it was confusing. And it was really interesting to kind of hear this side of this world that we don't really talk about, or isn't really widely popularized or highly discussed. And this kind of leads us into this: how do we cope with the emotional after effects? So coping with the emotional after effects of a session can be a significant challenge for a bull. There's got to be a common range of emotions that arise in the aftermath of being with someone. Now, I can imagine for some bulls, there's a sense of emptiness or loneliness that may creep in as they reflect on the temporary nature of those encounters, because that's what they are. They're a temporary encounter. I would probably more likely say they're a temporary empty encounter, meaning that because you're there for one purpose, when you're done, you're discarded. Now, there's an old saying: you don't pay a hooker to have sex, you pay a hooker to leave. Now, I know it's not the same correlation, but there is some truth to that statement that kind of is reflective towards this discussion, right? When that couple is done with that particular session, thank you for coming, Alex, Johnny, whatever, King Badger, whatever name they're going by. Thanks for showing up. We'll see you next week. Bye. There's no, they're not going to sit down and have dinner. Maybe some do. A couple of people have told me that the relationships have gotten quite intimate. It's almost describing a throuple type situation or a polyamorous type situation to me. But those are much farther and fewer in between. For the most part, they're discarded. They're not sitting around after the fact, relaxing, having a 3-course meal, going out to the ballpark. They're not doing that. They're not dating. And it's really kind of takes this emotional toll on them. So some bulls might yearn for this deeper connection beyond the sexual aspect of their engagements. Other bulls, for example, might experience jealousy or might be envious as they witness this intimate bond between the wife and her partner. And seeing the couple's commitment and connection can invoke these feelings of longing for a similar level of emotional intimacy in their own lives, something that maybe they feel is missing. Now, I'm not going to speak for every bull. I don't know every bull. And that the interesting psychological effects on this are not unlike many other relationships, except this primarily has to focus towards men. And if you're struggling with intimacy inside of your own life, these emotions can be intensified, especially if the bull on one hand starts to develop feelings for the person they're engaging with, whether it's a hot wife or a hot girlfriend, and then begins to entertain the thought of a more committed relationship and breaking up that relationship so they can have that one, to supplant the person that they're dominating over, meaning the whoever the cuck is. And additionally, some bulls may struggle with the sense of guilt or moral conflict. And that may seem counterproductive and intuitive to the whole sense of the word bull and what that relationship and lifestyle is like. They may question the ethical implications of their involvement in the relationship and whether their actions align with their personal values. And you might be asking me when I'm saying this to you, well, how would this be in conflict if they're already engaging open cheating, right, in front of their significant other? Well, in the case of Alex, where he's telling me, he's quite confused. Alex has now been out of the bull lifestyle for a little over a year or two, maybe 18 months. Alex, forgive me. I know it's not your name, but forgive me when I'm referencing you, because I can't exactly remember how long you told me it's been. Um, there was, like, so much information coming in on this. But when you look at this case where the values switch, when we get older, our core values, our ethics, our morals change, just like our tastes change. So it is possible that over time, things inside of us are going to just switch. We don't necessarily understand why, but they do. It does happen, and it happens to all of us. And balancing these personal desires with the well-being and consent of all parties involved can be a delicate and fine tightrope to walk. And that's very difficult to do when you're involved in a lifestyle that takes morality and, for the most part, throws it out the window. At least morality in the sense of a societal expectation. And I understand where the world is and where the world has come from and the things we've always done behind the scenes. But we do have to understand the moral implications here. Because you can't just say there's no morality at all. You can't say that there's no ethics within inside of our community, because there are. Otherwise, there wouldn't be consent. People would be running around doing whatever they want. There'd be murders and rapes and all these things going on. So we have morals, we have ethics. So the one thing that this and the other emails raised was a really important question. Is it morally righteous for bulls to entertain thoughts of pursuing a deeper relationship with the hot wife, or encouraging her to leave her husband, or the other way around, for her to pursue the bull and encourage her and the bull to get together and leave her husband? Now, I'm sure this answer is going to vary depending on people's personal beliefs and their ethical considerations, but it is crucial to approach these situations with honesty, integrity, respect, communication with everybody that's involved, to gain a deeper understanding. I don't know, one thing that none of the bulls really alluded to me, although I didn't really get around to asking, was, in a lifestyle in DS, I had a mentor. I don't know if bulls have mentors. That's a very interesting question for me. Do they talk? Is there a bull convention that they all go to? I know there's one famous one who I'm going to be reaching out to. Maybe I can get him on the show. I'd really like to have a conversation with him. I'm not going to say his name, because I'd like to first see, apparently, that this type of conversation has been mentioned before, but nothing really to dive into it. But I think looking at this, and when bulls are engaging in the cuckold lifestyle, it's essential to establish clear boundaries from the get-go and have open and constant and transparent communication. Exactly where you are. All of a sudden, is somebody developing feelings? Yep, this wasn't a part of our agreement. I think we're going to probably have to call it quits, right? All parties need to have a voice. They have to have agency in the dynamic of their relationship. It's not going to work. And that goes for the bull, that goes for the cuck, that goes for the hot wife. Right? And this might include uncomfortable discussions of desires and expectations and the potential of where the relationship may go. And for me to approach this, I'm kind of approaching it, looking at it from a take on poly, however, adding in a monogamous style relationship, which I know seems confusing, but it's, for me, trying to break this down, it's quite difficult as well. Because we have to remember, it's important that the hot wife, the cuck, the bull, these people who are adults, and they're all consenting adults, have willingly entered into this arrangement. And if each person's needs and feelings and well-being aren't considered and respected, there's going to be a complete breakdown in the emotional aspect of this throuple relationship, I suppose you could say. It is crucial to navigate these complex emotions with empathy and compassion. And we have to be mindful of the potential impact on everyone involved, but more importantly, how we are involved, meaning the bulls. Because your well being, your mental health is just going to be just as important as that couple. As a matter of fact, that couple may have already been discussing it for years. So they're well ahead of where you may be in having these discussions. Because by the time a bull gets involved, they're starting out figuring out what this couple wants. But the couple, whether the couple's got it completely figured out or not, it's a different story. But they've already, I'm going to call it all things even, have had this discussion. I kind of believe it's the same way in ethical non-monogamous and polyamorous relationships where they're opening things up. So it's really interesting to me, this whole thing. The emotional effects on bulls within the lifestyle, their roles in cuckold relationships and the experiences that they face, these moral considerations. And I know it's odd to talk about morality again, that we're bringing up morality, or I'm bringing up morality within the BDSM context, in the bull context, under the fetish umbrella. But I mean, these are all things that affect people, and people have a range of emotions. And just because they're a man that's, in this role, that doesn't mean they're just discarded. They're not a utility piece, they're not a tool, they're not just a piece of meat. And it's so easy for a lot of us just to discard somebody like a bull because they're a man, and we'll just say, oh, well, you don't have feelings. Most recently, I wrote something about stress reduction, and people got upset because I'm speaking to men. Well, because sometimes not everything is going to apply. It can apply what I'm writing or what I'm saying to others, but I wasn't specifically speaking to anyone else. I was speaking to men, and dominant men at that. I think people are so willing nowadays to get offended, and they're looking to be offended. They're looking to be victimized, that we miss the bigger picture. And I'm segueing a little bit here. I'm straying a little bit from my topic, but the reality is this really does affect. What I'm talking about today does affect men, and it affects bulls in this position. I'm not talking about cucks and the effects on cucks, and I'm not talking about the effects on hot wives, because that's not what the position or the email that was sent to me raised. I'm focused on this topic here. And these complex cuckold lifestyles, I can't imagine doesn't require a ton of careful, considered navigation and understanding, especially inside of individual relationship and then the bull boundary system. And being open and honest with all these participants, and not having expectations or fantasy that are so far out of realm that they're going to lead to nothing but disappointment when they come into fruition. So I'd kind of like to hear your thoughts on this today. If you're bulls, I know some of you like to maintain your privacy. Emailing me is just fine. I really, please keep it coming in. I really want to hear more about this topic. And I'd like to hear maybe some of my audience's thoughts on this. If you've ever participated in the cuckold or the bull lifestyle and you feel open and free to talk about it, please let me know on social media. It's a very quite interesting topic for me. And like I said, I am going to pursue one person who's quite public. I'm going to keep his name private for now and see if I can bring him onto the show. I'd like to have a real big conversation with this person because his name was mentioned to me, and I'm going to reach out to him and see if I can have a talk with him about this. But I think it's really important that this is a discussion, especially when it focuses on men and their feelings, and inside of something that's very centric, where you're kind of this third wheel, and you're utilitarian in that respect. You're a utility piece, you're a tool, and that's how you're being used. Please, if you follow me on Spotify, on the app, rate me 5 stars so other people can find my podcast. I'm going to get the message out to more people as we listen within the community. I do have a book out. It's called Tangled Desires, the intersection between psychology and BDSM. It's going into its second revision. I've had some feedback, so that's working on it. But it is available currently wherever you buy your ebooks. But yes, please let me know in discussions and thoughts what you think of this and how this may affect someone you know or has affected you or affected your relationships. Until next time, everybody, be safe, stay tuned.